the ways in which you could deeply transform yourself lie in your shadow side. Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Antonia, and today I'm making a video about why it's so important to integrate your shadow self with yourself. And I think that if we want to get closer to the truth of who we are, this is essential because all of us are half light and half dark. It's like the yin-yang symbol. One can't exist without the other, so it's unrealistic and goes against reality to think that we don't have flaws or to think that there aren't dark aspects about us. And what hides in our shadow are fears and things that we might be ashamed of, things that we often err on the side of caution around, and things that we are just in general uncomfortable talking about or dealing with or bringing to the surface in general. But what this does, like this hiding away of our darkness and this hiding away of our pain and anything that we're ashamed of, it makes it so we aren't whole and we go through life feeling incomplete. And it's this pain from feeling incomplete that can be very destructive. And when we aren't aware of the things that are lurking in our shadow, it makes it so we don't know how to consciously control it, because it's actually overtaking us even more by not facing it, since we aren't aware of its tendencies. And when we aren't aware of our triggers and our pains and our shame, they come out unbeknownst, and they come out at our most vulnerable points. They come out when we're drunk. They come out when we are highly emotionally stimulated or when we are triggered. We won't be able to know what our triggers are unless we face the darkness. And it takes a lot of strength from your ego. It takes letting go, and it takes a lot of mindfulness and overall just what is it called? Radical honesty. It takes a lot of radical honesty with yourself to say, these things happened to me and it hurt. And I feel like the most mentally unwell people in the world are people who deny the truth and people who deny things that happen to them, because when you try to alter your past, or when you try to pretend that something doesn't exist, what you're doing is actually creating your own reality. It's like you're playing God, and that is extremely destructive in nature. It goes against the natural order of things. So what you're going to end up doing is projecting all of that pain and suffering onto other people, because the things that are hidden dormant in your shadow, they want to be seen. They are parts of yourself just as equal to the light half of yourself. And if you have your back towards the shadow, the things inside of you that aren't seen are going to be yelling and screaming at you to turn around, because parts of yourself that are unrealized can't be integrated into who you are. And by not facing the darkness inside of you, it's actually doing a bigger disservice to you, because the ways in which you could deeply transform yourself lie in your shadow side. And it's through healing these pains and shames in your shadow, it's that process of healing that makes you into the person that you need to be. And that's alchemy. It's turning your pain into love. It's turning your fear into hope. It's learning how to find wholeness, is accepting the truth and accepting that there is a dark side to life, and It's not like the darkness is gonna disappear just because you ignore it. And you actually become more neurotic and more out of control the longer and harder you try to ignore this darkness. And I think that's why the whole idea of clowns is terrifying to children, because it's like, what are you hiding behind that mask? What are you hiding behind this curated persona that you're showing me? It's like the eeriness of not knowing what lurks behind the shadow. That's why it's almost creepy when someone is too positive. And it's like you wonder, like, sometimes you come across people who are very straight-laced and aren't very like open with their flaws. And when you see someone who maybe tries to be perfect or tries to get you to think that they're perfect, it's scary in a way, because you know that there's something that they're trying to hide. And to the extent of what they're trying to hide, like, how do you know how long and how deep they've been hiding it? Like, how do you know how dark what it is that they're hiding? They've become so good at hiding it that in the end it actually overtakes them and overpowers them even more, because they have their back to it. And the brighter a light is on something, the darker the shadow. So if you turn away from your shadow and your way of coping with that is increasing the light, like, think of shining something on yourself, or like taking an object and putting it in the sun when it's like really hot, like when the sun is at the highest point in the sky during the day and it's beaming down on an object. The shadow of that object is going to be extremely dark. And it's the same with us. If we are extremely focused on the light, there's as much good in us as there is bad. There's as much potential for darkness in us as there is potential for goodness. And it's important we know this, because if we can't make the distinction between light and dark, then we won't be able to transcend and grow our consciousness in the way that we need to. And our deepest potential lies in our shadow. And our shadow is not always negative things. Our shadow can also be things that we were shamed of. For example, if you were shamed when you were a child for singing, that becomes something that you hide in your shadow. It becomes something that you hide because it brings you so much shame to sing, because you were so embarrassed from it and humiliated from it that you hide it away, and your desire to sing is hidden for decades until you rediscover it. Then rediscovering that passion for singing, that is an example of integrating your shadow self into your conscious self. And that is powerful, and that is extremely healing energy. And that is alchemy. That is the kind of alchemy that I'm talking about, that is so, it's like gold. It's like the purpose of life to me, is to find that wholeness, the space between the positive and negative ends of a battery. When that comes together, it creates electricity. And it's that electricity that is love. It's a sign of wholeness. It's like things are complete, like things are flowing, and it's creating a force bigger than those two batteries. Like when the positive and negative end of a battery come together, it can create light, it can create connections and information can travel. And that's just one example of how magical things happen when you meet the positive with the negative. And who we are is in between the positive and the negative aspects of ourselves. And when we can be a witness to our identity, when we can be a witness to our ego, our shadow, and be understanding of the personas that we put on for other people, we learn to be more self-aware, and we can be more introspective. And it's this attention to detail, it's this courage from your ego, it's learning how to be mindful and pay attention to your dreams and pay attention to your emotional reactions. And part of doing shadow work is recalling when you first started to feel those certain feelings. And once you remember that, you will start to feel pain. You will be taken into the darkness from feeling these things. It's this unknowingness of what is in the shadow that is so terrifying. The longer and longer it's ignored, the darker and darker it gets. And this is based on Carl Jung's theory of the shadow. And a lot of this video was inspired by his works. I find his work to be really inspiring and very enlightening. And it got so dark outside today and my memory card got full in the middle of filming, so I'm probably going to do a second part to this video, but that's going to be it for today. I hope that you feel enlightened from this video, and I hope it helps you in some way. Okay? I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.